Hello everyone, welcome back. The topic for today's discussion is the second part of Clubfoot, that is the management. I would advise you to listen to the first part of Clubfoot, which was uploaded previously, to understand the concepts behind treating Clubfoot in this video. The goals of treating a patient or a child with Clubfoot is at the end of the treatment, the affected foot should be plantigrade. The word plantigrade is used to signify a foot which is flat on the ground so that the weight transmission is equal throughout the sole. The foot should be supple with the joints mobile. The foot should be functional for walking and it should be pain free. In other words, this deformed foot should be converted into a plantigrade, supple, functional, and pain free foot as given in the right hand side of the picture, which makes the child to walk as normal as possible. The initial treatment of a child with clubfoot is non surgical or non operative. I would like to stress the word always here because initial treatment is always non surgical management. Why? Because surgery in clubfoot or in such a small age will result in scarring of the tissues and stiffness of the foot. So, to avoid a scarred, stiff foot, which is against our treatment goals, we have to avoid surgery as an initial management, and the initial management is always non surgical. What helps in achieving the non surgical management in clubfoot? All the anatomical structures in the body are adapted in such a way that they respond or stretch to traction, and this phenomenon is called viscoelasticity, and this stretching is there for any human for that matter, whether it is Spider-Man or a normal human being. So this viscoelastic character facilitates our non-operative management by stretching of the contracted soft tissues. So the word which you have to use it in exam, both in theory and clinicals for management of clubfoot is serial manipulation and casting. So this is the magic word which has to be used when you are asked about treatment of clubfoot. Serial manipulation and casting. There are two techniques of manipulating a clubfoot. The old one was kite, which is not commonly used, and the recent most commonly used technique is Ponseti, which has stood the test of time and it is being used in almost all places. Now, our further discussion of management of clubfoot will be based on this Ponseti method. The main principle in understanding the Ponseti method of correction is sequential correction. Although this word sounds confusing, if you understand why this word sequential correction is important, it is easier for you to understand the treatment aspect. Now, why sequential correction is important? Now, look at this picture of a child with clubfoot. Once the skin and the soft tissues are removed, these are the bones which is present inside, which are assembled in such a way it replicates the deformity as seen in the clinical picture. Obviously, our first thought would be to stretch the soft tissues, we dorsiflex the foot. But what happens if a direct dorsiflexion is done? Of the ankle joint, the forefoot and midfoot alone dorsiflexes, leaving alone the talus and calcaneum in its initial deformed position, producing a rounded lower sole. And this resembles the lower part of a rocking chair. So this is called a rocker bottom foot. So if a sequential correction is not done, we will end up in converting a clubfoot into this type of deformity, which is called a rocker bottom foot, which is difficult to walk. And this rocker bottom foot occurs because the foot breaks at the midfoot and then dorsiflexes rather than moving at the ankle joint. So to avoid the occurrence of rocker bottom foot, correction should also always be done by manipulation in a proper sequence. And what is the sequence in which manipulation has to be done? It is again the same word, followed by A, that is adduction or supination, which is occurring in the forefoot. Third is V, that is varus, which occurs in the subtalar joint of the hind foot, and E, equinus, which occurs in the ankle joint of the hind foot. So now coming to the first deformity that has to be corrected, that is C, that is cavus. Cavus is the first deformity which has to be corrected by manipulation, and the first cast has to be applied. Now look at this foot. For demonstration purposes, I have taken a foot of a neglected club foot in an adult. If you see the foot carefully, the red line indicates cavus or high arch on the medial side, of which the first ray is plantar flexed when compared to the other toes, or in other words, the great toe is plantar flexed towards the sole when compared to the other toes, and this plantar flexion of the first ray causes the cavus deformity or high arch. So the first manipulation is correcting this cavus by dorsiflexing the first ray or moving the first ray towards the upper side as shown in this animation. So when this first ray is dorsiflexed, we can understand that the supination deformity is actually increased, or in other words, after the first manipulation, the deformity looks worsened. This has to be told to the parents before applying the first cast, because they should not be afraid on seeing a deformed foot which is even deformed after first manipulation. So correction of cavus initially increases supination and the deformity looks worsened, because that is the first deformity which has to be corrected, and we are aligning the forefoot to the hind foot so that further correction can be done. So once the cavus deformity is manipulated initially, a groin to toe cast has to be applied with the knee in 90 degree of flexion. The groin to toe cast is important because as the child's leg is small, if the child starts kicking, the cast can become loosened, and the groin to toe cast with the knee included in the cast will help in maintaining the corrected position of the foot deformity. The cast which is applied is maintained for 1 week with proper care of the cast and frequent inspection of the skin and the circulation of the foot. At the end of 1 week, the cast is removed, and this will be the clinical picture after the cast is removed, showing correction of cavus deformity in the left hand side of the picture, and the removed cast is shown on the right hand side, which actually shows a persistent deformed foot, as I have told you before, because correcting cavus will only cause increase in the deformity initially. Now the second deformity which has to be corrected is adduction or otherwise supination of the forefoot. So that is the second manipulation which you have to do, and you have to cast it. So how does it act? The animation for it. This we have seen in our previous video showing the forefoot adduction, and gradual stretching of the forefoot towards the lateral side will result in correction of forefoot adduction. After correcting the forefoot adduction, again a groin to toe cast is applied, and the cast is left for a period of 1 week. After 1 week, the cast is removed, and we can see in the clinical picture here the red line showing corrected forefoot adduction so that the medial border becomes straight while the remaining other deformities are still pending. And the right hand side picture shows the removed cast showing a straight medial border with correction of the forefoot adduction. So the next deformity that has to be corrected is V, varus, which occurs in the subtalar joint of the hind foot. So manipulating varus heel into valgus heel is the third manipulation and casting. Now here comes the explanation for why a rocker bottom foot occurs. In a case of varus, as seen in clubfoot, we know that the calcaneum goes along with the talus to rest underneath it because of the attachment of the interosseous ligament. The first step in this is to bring the calcaneum away from the talus and rotate it laterally so that the talus can move further. Now this is what we do in the third manipulation. The calcaneum is rotated laterally into valgus so that talus position. Once this varus is corrected, a third cast is applied from the groin to the toes, and the cast is again left for a period of 1 week with proper care of the cast skin and checking the circulation. After 1 week, when the third cast is removed, we can see that in addition to the cavus and adduction correction, the heel is in valgus as shown in the red line, and the right hand side, the removed cast shows the heel in valgus, but still the last deformity, the equinus, is persisting in the clinical picture and in the cast. Now the last deformity to be corrected in our sequence is E or equinus, which occurs in the ankle joint of the hind foot. So correction of this equinus is the fourth manipulation and casting technique. Now this shows the bone alignment of the ankle and the foot in equinus. Now as we have corrected the calcaneum into valgus, the calcaneum has moved away from talus and moved laterally, leaving the talus free. And now once this calcaneum is taken away from the talus, you dorsiflex the entire sole, the equinus gets corrected and the foot becomes plantigrade, thus completing our correction of all deformities. Once the equinus is also corrected, the fourth or the final cast is applied and left for a period of 1 week with the same cast carrying. After the cast removal, you can see all the deformities of the foot corrected with the foot plantigrade, heel valgus and forefoot in abducted position. In some cases, or in other words, in majority of the cases, the equinus deformity in the ankle is difficult to correct because of the tightening of tendo-Achilles. So even after fourth cast, if the tendo-Achilles is not stretched and the equinus deformity is persistent, then we have to do a percutaneous tenotomy of the tendo-Achilles. Tenotomy is nothing but cutting the tendon of tendo-Achilles completely so that the soft tissue release is done, and after doing this percutaneous tenotomy, the ankle joint can be brought back into dorsiflexed position. This percutaneous tenotomy will be required in nearly 85% of the children even after serial manipulation and casting. So this completes the correction of all deformities. Now the top picture shows the serial correction of the clubfoot in the anteroposterior plane, and the bottom picture shows the serial correction of the clubfoot after every cast change in the lateral plane. So once we achieve a plantigrade, supple, functional, pain-free foot after serial manipulation and casting, you have to maintain the corrected position by making the child wear this Dennis Brown splint. This Dennis Brown splint is nothing but two Dennis Brown shoes attached by a rod. So when the child puts her or his foot into the shoes, every time the child kicks, the opposite movement of the deformed foot happens and the correction is maintained. So what is this Dennis Brown shoe? This is the lateral view of the Dennis Brown shoe, and I will explain the features of the Dennis Brown shoe, which might be asked for your short notes and also in your Viva session. So the first and foremost thing is it is a boot. It is not a shoe. What is a boot? It extends above the ankle joint so that the varus correction is maintained. The second is the toe box in the anterior part of the shoe is open and this open toe box is left for the foot to grow normally. Foot. This is done to maintain the correction of inversion or supination so that the foot is placed in an everted position by elevating the lateral side of the sole as shown in the yellow triangle. This is the posterior view of the Dennis Brown shoe. This open heel is given to check whether the child's heel is touching on the sole so that the equinus deformity is corrected completely. This is the medial view of the Dennis Brown shoe, and the feature here is a straight medial border to maintain the correction of forefoot adduction. So these are the various features of Dennis Brown shoes, and the Dennis Brown shoe should only be applied after obtaining complete correction of the clubfoot by your manipulation and casting, and not before obtaining correction. So how long to wear the Dennis Brown shoes? The Dennis Brown splint, that is two shoes with a rod, has to be worn by the child till the child starts walking. And once the child starts walking, the rod has to be removed and the child has to walk with the Dennis Brown shoes. The shoes has to be worn completely throughout 24 hours for 4 months, after which nighttime wear of the shoes has to be used for a period of 3 to 4 years. So this completes the conservative management protocol of clubfoot. When do you operate on clubfoot? The indications for surgery in clubfoot are when there is persistent deformity even after serial manipulation and casting of 4 to 5 cast, when the deformity is very rigid or resistant to manipulation, and when there is a relapse or recurrence of deformity after achieving complete correction following manipulation. So a persistent deformity are indications for surgery. When do you do surgery? It has to be done preferably when the child starts walking, that is around 9 to 10 months of age, so that after surgery, the child's walking will maintain the corrected position. And two, the aim of surgery is to achieve plantigrade foot. And the magic word which has to be used when you are asked what surgery you will do in clubfoot, the word is posteromedial soft tissue release. What are these posteromedial soft tissues? I have mentioned in my previous video. Now the posteromedial soft tissues as given in this picture are the tibialis posterior muscle, flexor hallucis longus, flexor digitorum longus, and tendoachillis. The orange line are the ligaments on the medial side, and the black line is the capsule. So these are the soft tissue structures which has to be released. Release in these four muscles has to be lengthened by a Z-plasty, and the ligaments and the capsule on the medial side should be cut. So once the medial tight structures are released, we are able to correct all the deformities of the clubfoot and the four muscles are lengthened. This picture shows Z lengthening of these four muscles: tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, flexor hallucis longus, and tendoachillis to obtain a corrected foot deformity. So this is the surgical procedure for clubfoot, that is posteromedial soft tissue release, and the soft tissues include four muscles, the medial ligaments and the medial capsule. Now, even after doing the soft tissue release, if the clubfoot deformities persist, then the last option is correcting the deformity by doing various bony procedures, which is the PG topic. Now coming to the summary, whenever you see a case of a congenital clubfoot, first you have to confirm that it is an idiopathic clubfoot by excluding all the other neurological causes. And the treatment which I am going to discuss further is only for idiopathic clubfoot. Once you have confirmed that it is idiopathic CTEV, the treatment magic word is serial manipulation and casting in CAVE or CAVE sequence, every manipulation casting for 1 week, then cast removal during and the next manipulation. And after the fourth casting, if the tendo Achilles is still tight, you have to do a percutaneous TA tenotomy and apply the final cast. If all the deformities of the clubfoot are corrected after 5 cast changes, then the further protocol is that of a DB splint or shoes for a period of 4 months full time, and then nighttime protocol for a period of 3 to 4 years. If after serial manipulation and casting, the varus and adduction deformities are corrected, but the equinus deformity is still persistent, then you have to do a tendo Achilles lengthening and a posterior capsule release of the ankle and the subtalar joint and do a final casting. If after serial manipulation and casting, there is absolutely no correction of any deformities for that matter, then the management is surgical, and the magic word is posteromedial soft tissue release. So this completes our discussion on the management of clubfoot. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, subscribe it for further videos. Thank you.